Today's lesson is Lesson 14, Seeing Things Differently. Dinotopian News. The Torosaurus might not be a real dinosaur after all. Scientist Jack Horner and his research student, John Scalinelli, had recently produced evidence in an aim to prove the similarities between the Triceratops and the Torosaurus. They believed that the Torosaurus might actually be a mature Triceratops. It was misclassified in 1891 by Othniel Marsh during the notorious Bone Wars. Dinotopian News, February of 2012. The other news was 2010. A new study published by Yale University claims that the Torosaurus and Triceratops are, in fact, different. This year's long study compared over 35 different skulls of the two dinosaurs and concluded that there were too many differences to make this theory plausible. Which one's right? We zoom ahead today into the 21st century to learn about the paleontologist who consulted behind the scenes of the popular movie Jurassic Park. Not only did he help bring accurate and realism to the scenes, but he was also the inspiration for one of the story's main characters, Dr. Alan Grant. Thanks to groundbreaking discoveries in the world of science, awe-inspiring contributions in the entertainment industries, and theories that have been pushed against the general consensus, like our breaking news article above, Jack Horner had a notable legacy. From the outside looking in, Horner's accomplishments make his life seem exciting and perhaps even easy. However, as we learn today, there is almost always more to the story. Meet Jack Horner. Like beauty from the ashes, World War II was over and a new life filled the hope of a better world was beginning. Parents and their children, sisters and brothers, husbands and wives were together once again, trying to piece together a semblance of normalcy, when for a long time that had seemed impossible. It was into the I don't know how to pronounce that Jack Horner was born in 1946. His parents called him Jack since his father's name was also John. His father had served in the Navy and upon his arrival back in the U.S. soil, had to find a way to provide for his wife and son. With the effects of the Great Depression still upon them, starting a new business wasn't easy, but they began a gravel company. Young Jack loved dinosaurs all throughout his childhood. His lifelong fantasy with them sparked when he thought that found his first fossil at age 8 years old. His mother encouraged him in his interest and drove him and his brothers all over Montana and southern Alberta so they could hunt for fossils. Did you know that in the early years of the Horner's Gravel Company, money was so tight they lived in a tent until they could afford a home? In fact, to deal with the mice and rat problems, Jack's father is said to have brought a bull snake into the tent to manage the pest. Where fossils brought joy, school brought a sense of dread. What came easily to other kids in his age were incredibly difficult for Horner. He struggled with reading, writing, and also math. He painfully made his way through school, very low marks and much difficulty, although science was one of his saving graces. Here Horner excelled, especially when it came to showing what he knew, rather than writing or speaking about it. His specialty was his school science fair entries, where he presented some phenomenal projects, which included a Tesla coil, a generator, a rocket that flew thousands of feet in the air, and even a comparison of dinosaur bones from Alberta and Montana. A professor from the Montana State University saw this final project and encouraged him. This led Horner to apply to go to go there the following year in an attempt to gain a geology degree. University, it turned out, was even more difficult than grade school. Horner failed his classes, was drafted into the U.S. Marine Corps, and went to Vietnam. When he got home, he reapplied to the university and took many different courses, but his GPA was only .06, and he did not pass. Although his school allowed him to continue to take classes, he did not end up completing his degree. With such poor grades, Horner had little hope of getting a job in his desired field. He applied for jobs at various museums, but got a job as a truck driver and bought the gravel business from his father in order to provide for his family. Eventually, he got a job offer as a technician, an entry-level position at Princeton University's Natural History Museum. Horner, willingly to start at the bottom and work his way into the career he wanted, moved his young family to Princeton and accepted the position. When Horner was 30 years old, he heard about a program at the university for students who struggled with reading and convinced them to evaluate him. The test showed that he was dyslexic, an answer to years of difficulty with reading and writing. His hard work and determination was truly recognized about 10 years later when he was awarded the honorary Doctorate of Science from the University of Montana. In 1978, Horner went on a summer trip back to Montana to hunt for fossils with a friend, Bob Michaela. Along the way, they encountered a woman named Marian Bradvoyd, who had a dinosaur fossil collection of her own. As they discovered their mutual passion for fossil hunting, Marian brought out the bones of a Hadrosaurus from her collection to show the two men. Then she showed them the tiny bones she had found that appeared to be from a black duck-billed dinosaur. Michaela and Horner were very excited. Together, the three of them went to the site and began excavating. They found another 15 babies and evidence of a nest site. Only 1 year later, Horner described and published the findings and named the new species Maiasaurus peblosaurus. Horner's discovery changed everything. It launched him into recognition in the public eye, something that may not have been comfortable at first, considering his dislike of public speaking and his introverted personality. In fact, his first speech about his discovery is said to have been taken over a month to write and was painfully delivered. But this notoriety accelerated his career and landed him in a new position in Montana State University Museum of the Rockies. Horner was a celebrated scientist despite lacking the traditional credentials that most carry. He continued his studies on dinosaur reproduction, nesting, and development. His research led him to the theory about the Triceratops and the Torosaurus that we read about at the beginning of the lesson, and he believes that there are many more examples of this presumed misclassification that will be found as we continue to study. His notoriety provided the opportunity to be involved in the Jurassic Park movie series when director Steven Spielberg called him up one day to ask if he would be a scientific advisor for the films. Horner helped to provide a level of accuracy for the dinosaurs in the film, how they looked, moved, and acted. Although it is a fictional movie series, Horner's expertise added a layer of realism that fans have appreciated. An interesting fact is 20 years later, Marian Bradvoyd filed a lawsuit in order to get the bones back, claiming that she had not given the bones to Horner, but loaned them. It took a number of years, but eventually she won the case. The bones went back to the state of Montana to be displayed. The Maiasaura. Too many know that the Maiasaura was a type of Hadrosaur, or duck-billed dinosaur. But if you look closely at the picture below, it doesn't really look like it had much of a bill, does it? While its bill wasn't as flat and long as some of the cousins, it is indeed have a wide beak and a thick nose, which made it look more like a horse than a duck. As a herbivore, the Manosaurus ate green leaves, shrubs, and likely whatever vegetation it could find. What is most interesting about this dinosaur is what scientists like Horner have been able to learn from the fossils that were found. These dinosaurs were thought to lay about 25 eggs in a clutch, and their eggs were long and thin like a sausage. Horner determined that the nests were far apart to leave enough space so the adults would not crush the eggs of the other dinos in their herd. The young were believed to stay in the nest for about a year, during which time the parents would provide and care for them until they were ready to venture out on their own. This is where their name comes from, as Morosaurus means good mother lizard. Since the first discovery, there have been hundreds of Morosaurus found, including some in Asia and Europe. However, the largest collection was found in the same area of Montana where the first nest was uncovered. Over 200 species were extracted. Her name means good mother lizard. They were found in Montana. They're a herbivore. The size is 7.5 feet and 30 feet long, and they weigh 3 to 4 tons. The Triceratops was compared with a 5.11 person in the picture you see, and they were, that means 3-horned face. They were found in Colorado and in the USA. They were a herbivore. They were 30 feet long, and they weighed 12,000 to 16,000 pounds. The Triceratops, Horner spent a lot of time studying the Triceratops, even though he was not the person who first discovered them. Through his studies, he came up with an interesting theory. The Triceratops were actually just younger versions of the Torosaurus. They are both types of sauropod, known for the shelf or bony frill at the top of their skull. Whether or not they are distinct dinosaurs is still under debate today. The Triceratops were about the size of an African elephant. They were herbivores with beak-like mouths. Their skulls had horns, including 2 above their eyes and a 3rd one on their nose, which were likely used in battles and self-defense. Unlike the antlers of deers, these horns were actually solid bone, which would have been very strong and not easily broken. Scientists believe their frills could have been colorful and useful in attracting a male. Like a rhinoceros, these dinosaurs were built like a stocky little tank. They were believed to be strong and powerful, able to run up to 20 miles per hour. Recent trackways found in Colorado have led to speculate about the posture of this dinosaur. Some scientists believe they might have walked on 2 legs in an upright fashion. Imagine that. Dr. Jack Horner faced some unexpected things in his life in the form of challenges that probably felt at times insurmountable. He learned differently than most others around him. There were no real accommodations or much understanding back then about dyslexia. Because of his difficulties, he did not perform well in an educated system that was entirely focused on reading and writing as the only ways to learn. Now, as a teacher at the Chapman University, Horner aims to approach learning in multiple different ways. He encourages his students to think outside the box of traditional education. Do you suppose Horner may at times have felt misunderstood, frustrated, discouraged? Throughout his story, we can see that he persevered, determined to follow his interest and pursue a career against all odds. Now, one of the most internationally recognized paleontologists of the 21st century, it is safe to say that he succeeded. This concludes our lesson 14.